Welcome to Page to Screen, the podcast where Nikki and Christina discuss books that were turned into movies and films that were adapted from books. As always, we do remind you that spoilers lay ahead. Now, we invite you to decide with us the age-old question, which is better, the book or the movie?
Happy 2021! We did it!
We made it.
We survived 2020, and before we get into this episode, I am sorry. I thought that 2021 I was going to be all like, I'm bringing a new energy into this, and I'm going to leave all that negativity behind. And then we read Eat, Pray, Love. So, yeah. Hey, everybody. Let's do this intro the real way. Hi, Christina.
Hello, Nicole.
How are you doing in the new year?
I am furious.
There's a lot of rage in 2021 that I didn't expect.
You know, we cleaned the house, we saged the house, we are coming out of some 2020 depression. I'm like, okay, we're going to get our act together. We're going to be positive, good energy. And then you made me read this book.
I know. I just want to direct everyone to when we brought this book up on the last episode. I clearly stated I had only ever really read the eat part. And the eat part is just all in Italy, okay? And I liked Italy. I love Italy. Let's get real. I love Italy.
You love Italy, yeah.
Like, I don't need an excuse to be all like, let's go to Rome or read a book about Rome or watch a TV show where someone's in Rome. I watched the TV show Rome. I didn't need an excuse. But I will fully say I apologize for the rest of the book. Actually, I apologize for that part of the book, too. I apologize for Elizabeth Gilbert in general.
I did not enjoy roaming around in this book.
I will say, I definitely read this the first time I picked up this book. And this is something that apparently I read some Goodread reviews about this, and if you guys aren't using Goodreads,
I did too.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah,
and a lot of people picked up the same thing where they were like, it took me forever to get through this book, and if we weren't doing this for the podcast, we probably wouldn't have read this book until like, I don't know, December of 2021, because it would have taken me a whole year to sit through this. It took me forever to read this anyways. Like, I can generally read a book real fast. This, I was like, I hate you. I hate you.
Even the title is exhausting. So the full title is Eat, Pray, Love, One Woman's Search for Everything Across Italy, India, and Indonesia by Elizabeth Gilbert. Ugh, I'm already tired.
I'm like, who are you, Charles Dickens? I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, so for those who aren't in the know, Eat, Pray, Love is a search for one. It's one woman's search for it's like, okay, Eat, Pray, Love is a story. It's kind of like a memoir of our lead character, Elizabeth Gilbert, who goes by Liz, as she tries to find herself in the three I's. You know, Italy, Indonesia, and India.
Right there, right off the bat, I was rolling my
eyes. Ba-dum-bum. Kicking you off the podcast, Christina. No, I need you. You're my comic relief. I need you. I apologize. I need you. Yeah, this was... Oh my God. Not since Little Women have I had such a guttural response to a book. Mm-hmm. And honestly, compared to Little Women, I would read Little Women 5 more times than ever have to read this book again.
I was on board when I started reading it because she's coming out of divorce. She wants to try and find herself, find spirituality, get an answer to who she is. So she wants to travel. On board. I get it. The divorce is really rough and it's not going very well. She tries to avoid using attorneys, so she's just talking with her husband. Her husband is deeply affected by the divorce, so he's not handling it, I guess, in the most adult way. So all of that I was okay with. And it is a very self-absorbed book, period.
Yeah.
But when you are in that state, at first I was okay with it because, that's just how it is. But oh my gosh, it just never ends.
Yeah, no, she is, even when it comes to her divorce, the reasoning behind, there is no reasoning behind why she wants the divorce. She clams up immediately about her relationship, which automatically put up a bunch of red flags for me. Like, the whole rest of the book was littered with red flags because of this one moment where she was like, well, I don't want to drag it out, but you know how relationships are. And it's like, yeah, but was it his fault? Was it your fault? Did you guys just fall out of love? Was it because you guys got married at 24 and set that stupid, ridiculous rule that by 31 you have to have a kid? Is it because at one point you mentioned you have 8 phone lines? What do you need 8 phone lines for? You're an author.
And they have a house. Yeah, they've got a house and then a separate apartment. They have everything.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing that bothered me too, is that I hope everyone who reads this book remembers she's not like me. Like, I have a job, thankfully I have a job. My husband has a job. I get to do this for fun. But I'm not out there buying, a bunch of random crap at the store either. Like, I have to really limit my spending. She's rich. Like, I don't want anyone to go into this book thinking, oh, poor woman, she's going to do this, self-discovery mission all on her own. No, she is rich. Like, rich. She's got money.
Yeah, and a lot of people point this out, and it's completely omitted in the movie, that she did lose a lot of her money in the divorce. However, the whole idea of this book was based off the fact that she got a $200,000 advance on the book in order to fund her trip, and she probably could have funded it regardless of that advance.
Yeah.
So she had a lot of inspiration to find herself.
Yeah, she was not hurting, like, by any means, which you learn as you find out the places that she goes to and what she's actually doing in all these places. Like, the more you know, the more you're like, I really dislike you a lot. And I thought I hated her friends. Her friends are like dicks to her about this whole thing.
They are, but her character, and I know it's a memoir, so it's just her. She comes off as like the unlikable people in a Woody Allen movie is made into the heroine of a story. She's a Jane Krakowski character. She is the worst of Carrie Bradshaw, and it's all from a woe is me perspective. And at first you're kind of eating the candy and going along with it, but at some point the lack of self-awareness, not knowing yourself, but just self-awareness, is just unforgivable.
Yeah. Like, she ends up going through that really terrible divorce with her husband, who really drags it out, as he should, because it sounds like I'm team husband on this one, because she says that she wants to leave him. We don't know why, and then she immediately starts a relationship with a younger guy, I guess? Like an actor? Or are they the same age?
And no, I think he's younger, and his name's David. And yeah, he's an actor, and he's an actor in a play that she wrote. So she says how not healthy it is because he's playing a character that she created. Then the way that she tells the thing with David, she makes it sound like they didn't get together until after she decided to leave her husband. But there's another sentence later on, I want to say it's even maybe in the third part, where she's reflecting back on the last year, and it almost sounds like it's like she slips up. It sounds like she actually started the affair during the marriage.
Oh, when we get to talking about her personally after we're done with talking about the book and the movie, I've got some tidbits of knowledge that I'm going to sprinkle all over the place. And
I know. I
going to
know.
ruin everything for everybody. So that's why we're saving it for the end, you guys.
It's a soap opera.
Yeah.
It's a soap opera.
Her life is insane. Her life is literally just for books. But we'll get to that.
Right.
The thing that drives me nuts is that when she's right after her divorce and when she's with David, she goes through a very hard series of like depression, where there's a part in the book which, you know, it's not in the movie. She tries to like kill herself, basically. She thinks about it and she's thinking really hard about like slitting her wrists. And she still doesn't take antidepressants. And this is something that, you know, your body is your body. You do what's best for it. But she has a whole part in this book where she talks about like not taking antidepressants and kind of like talking about how it's almost like people who take antidepressants aren't good enough is how it came across to me.
Yeah, right.
And it made me so mad. And then she writes that the doctor says this thing to her, and it's like, you know, if you go to see a doctor, and your liver isn't doing well, and he gives you medication, would you take that medication for your liver? And she's like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, then why won't you do that for your brain? It's more important than just your liver. It's everything. And she's still just like, I mean, I'm on pills. It's like, welcome to America. Everyone's on pills. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, and not everybody can do the therapy of taking an entire year off of life and going to these places.
Yeah. She's just, so she's depressed, divorced, and in an on-again, off-again relationship with, oh my God, she's the 3Ds going to the 3
I
Is.
was about to point that out. It's depressed, divorced David.
Yes. So, while she's depressed, divorced, and in an on and off with David, while she's in the 3Ds, she starts taking these night school classes to learn Italian and decides that it's the most beautiful language in the world. Yes, I agree. It is. I mean, hello, pizza, love it. And
I was thinking so much about you during the Italy section because you've been there for, you know, the audience's awareness.
Yeah.
You have been there many times. You got married there. You are Italian. So I wondered what your opinion was on that portion of the book.
I was so mad. Okay, she goes to Italy, right? Like, she gets her money. Oh, should we talk about, before she goes to Italy, she actually takes a work trip to Bali where a medicine man tells her that she's going to lose all her money.
Get me started.
She does.
Yeah.
She gets all her money back. Duh. And that she's going to hang out with him again. So that'll come back later. But yeah, she gets to Italy, and she is the most annoying person I've ever heard about going to Italy. Everything she talks about there drives me absolutely nuts. Like, I will say this, she does everything right, I feel like, when it comes to learning the language. Because Jesse and I actually had this exact conversation. Like, the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it.
Right.
But not everyone has that opportunity. We're not all rich people. And just for people who know, I don't know if a lot of people know about how Rome's set up, but the place that she is staying in Rome, when we get to talking about the movie, they're not even close to each other. In the book, she is staying in a section of town over by the Spanish Steps, which is like a huge tourist destination. It's all just like American teenagers taking photos and European teenagers. Like, it's just a lot of tourism in one place. And then every street, like, it branches off and there's these streets, and it's like Ferragamo, Gucci, Chanel, Louis Vuitton. All the high-end stores are literally right there. She is not in, like, Jesse and I stayed in Airbnbs and, like, other houses in Rome. Gorgeous houses. None of them have scaffolding holding up their ceiling, okay? But she's living in the ritziest part of Rome besides the Vatican. Like, besides Vatican City, she's in, like,
Wow.
a really ritzy part of Rome.
In my head, she was living, because I remember photos that you sent me when you were, I think it was like the trip right before your wedding, and it was the one where you guys got like drunk off wine, and then you sent me a photo
Yeah.
of the lampshade that you thought looked like the Pope's hat, and you were like silly. And like over here, I can't remember what time it was, but it felt very early.
Oh, it probably would have been, like, 6 o'clock in the morning for you. Sorry.
So I was picturing that cute kind of place with, oh my God, now this is like making me even more
Yeah.
angry.
No, she's definitely in a very expensive part of town because
Wow.
up the Spanish Steps, there's like it's where all like the Europeans, like the famous writers and stuff would stay. So she's in a
Right.
very it's like she went on TripAdvisor and like what's a 5-star place that I could stay, and she rented that. I'm like,
I bet she did.
like that threw me, but the fact that she finds a language class that she could take that probably cost her an arm and a leg, another thing that most people can't get to do. I mean, oh God, I'm so angry. She also, there's one part that really angered me too, is she's talking about all the food that she's eating. And the food in Italy is great. First one to admit it. I could also gain 100 pounds in Rome just stuffing my face. But I would go to Da Francesco and eat nothing but cacio e pepe.
I was going to say, I was so hungry during the Italy part. And last night, actually, Carlos wanted to make a vegan curry with all vegetables. I guess that's what vegan is. But like with cauliflower. But I was like, maybe pasta? And he's like, you just want to eat pasta because of Eat, Pray, Love. And I said, cacio de pepe? And he's like, okay.
Which is, cacio e pepe is probably the hardest dish I've ever made. It's the easiest thing to screw up. It's like, you know, when they talk about the true sign of a good chef is being able to make a perfect fried egg. I think the true sign of being able to cook with pasta is being able to not screw up a cacio e pepe, because it's not, there's a fine line between creamy and soupy when it comes to making that sauce. And I actually think it was like the beginning of this year or towards the end of the beginning of this year, the beginning of 2020 or the end of 2019, when after the wedding, when we came back, and all I wanted was cacio e pepe, and I was obsessed with making it, and I would make it like once a week until I perfected it, and then I never made it again. I should make it again.
See, I don't want to brag, but my husband Carlos happens to be a very talented home cook, and he finds cacio de pepe to be a very easy dish to make, and he actually made a fried egg this morning, so...
Oh, okay then. He's not on this podcast, though, is he? Ooh, burn.
I'm here under representation.
Are you his lawyer? You're like the Lorax, but you speak for your husband. But no, the thing that drove me nuts about some of the food stuff she's talking about is when she says, it's so stupid, she says spaghetti cacio e pepe, which is definitely a thing. You know, you use the spaghetti pasta, but in Rome, it's all bucatini pasta, which is why it's so much harder to get here.
Yeah.
And that bothered me for some reason. And I can remember looking at the book and then showing Jessie, and I was like, really? She went to a restaurant in Rome and ate spaghetti cacio e pepe? I think she's false. And I just closed the book.
And it's a big difference, too, because not to be a food nerd, but... bucatini, the texture of it, the liquid sticks to the noodles, whereas spaghetti, it is more like a cylinder, and it's like a softer on the outside, so there's no texture for the actual sauce and cheese to stick to, the pepper.
It's like a cross between a macaroni noodle and spaghetti, but it's very tight. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause it has that little tiny hole down the center. You get it. You know, you've had it. It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome back to Pasta Talk.
Pasta Talk.
But, yeah, when she's in Italy, the description of the food is great. Her understanding of... The thing that drove me nuts, she gets to Italy and she expects to just speak Italian. You know, like she's like, I've been taking these night classes. I'm fabulous. I'm in Rome. And she's just like, oh, I don't know anything anyone is saying to me now. Great.
And she's so privileged at every turn because it's like she's trying to make a joke, but she's really not. She says that Italy must have been made for her because everything is in Italian. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah. Like she's very bold in saying that. Like men, like, oh, the older men still call me beautiful, but I'm surprised these young boys aren't after me like they were when I was 16. And it's like, you're on a fact-finding mission about yourself, and all you seem to care about is how the male gaze reflects on you. I'm like, that's real crap.
Just to say, too, she decided when she was making this journey for a year that she was going to be celibate.
Yeah.
So she's not engaging in... and by the way, let me just... allegedly, she is not engaging in any type of relationships or sex or anything like that. And I do kind of commend that, like allowing yourself to stay away from men for a little while until you get yourself right. But I also think that it's closing her off from certain relationships that perhaps would have also been healthy for her. I mean, sex isn't an unhealthy thing.
Yeah.
So in closing that part off of yourself, you're closing off part of what it is to be human. I mean, sexuality is just part of us as human beings.
Yeah. She's just like, she's limiting her relationships to the ones that she can have control over. And when she gets to India, the guy from Texas literally says to her, you're a control freak. And that's no more apparent than in Italy when she surrounds herself with people she knows she won't get physically attached to, which is very problematic. Like,
yeah,
if you're trying to find yourself, let yourself feel. Like, I think that's the biggest problem in this entire book is that I feel like she has no feelings.
Yeah, because it makes all of those people, and it's not just in Italy, I mean, it's everywhere, that all of these people to her are disposable.
Yeah. There's a great thing that why can I not remember the guy from Texas's name?
Richard from Texas.
That's it, Richard. Richard says this thing about David to her in India, and I think that is something that she's carried with her throughout everything, where he says that David wasn't meant to be in her life. He was meant to bring her to the next step. And it's like, I think that she, in returning to America and writing the book about her experience, took that and rode with it for the whole book. Because every character just disappears.
I don't believe her a lot of times. I don't think that everything is made up. I know that this actually happened. I know that she went to these places. I'm certain that some of the ways that she tells the stories just seem like they were real. But many times when she describes what is happening, I don't believe her. And the fact that Richard from Texas, I don't even think Richard from Texas exists, because there's some inaccuracies with it where in her audiobook, she actually does a Texas accent. Ooh. And then in the movie, what's his face? Richard Jenkins plays him in the movie, and he alleges that he met Richard from Texas, and Richard from Texas doesn't have an accent. So how does that equal out to each other? And when she talks about Richard from Texas, and this is my problem with some memoirs, she writes Richard from Texas talking, and he says things the way she says things. Yeah. And she writes entire conversations, not just one or two quotes, entire conversations that they have. And I'm sorry, unless she was secretly recording him or literally writing it down in a diary at the exact same time that he was speaking, there is no way that she has that good of a memory to be able to tell what he is saying word for word. Yeah. It's impossible.
Yeah. No, there's no... I take every memoir with a grain of salt when it has a quote in it, because it doesn't, unless that quote is pulled from like an actual interview that happened somewhere, I don't believe it. I don't believe half the stuff she says in this book just because it seems too perfect and too polished.
And I have a weird memory because I will tell something to my husband on Monday and then I'll go to say the same thing on Wednesday. He's like, oh, he already told me that. I'm like, oh, sorry. But I also have a really very specific memory where I remember certain things exact. Like there are certain quotes, like sayings that I said or someone said to me that were just like in emotionally extreme moments, either happy or sad or an argument. I remember those with specificity, but I could not tell you word for word what my husband said to me this morning when we were watching Animaniacs. Like, I can't.
Yeah, no, that's how my brain works too. Like I can remember an entire, it's almost like a montage of a day, but
Right,
I can paraphrase parts of conversations.
Yes.
But I can
Right.
paraphrase them with the same sort of tonal inflection.
Yeah.
But I could not tell you word for word what someone, like when we're done recording this, I will not remember what was really said, but I'll remember that there were funny parts in this.
Nikki, the minute that we are done recording, I forget everything that we said.
When the podcast drops and I listen to it, I'm like, ooh, we're funny. look at them jokes. Look at us. And then I'm like, I should remember this because I said it. That's me. I'm good. That's Christina. She's good. Like,
And, speaking of like Richard from Texas, who I think might be her, did you pick up the Tyler Durden of it all where she's like talking to herself?
oh my God, don't even get me started on that journal. Her secret journal where she asks herself questions. Girl, just do it. Listen, during COVID times, there was a Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire episode that had Tiffany Haddish on it. And she says, go with your gut because all that other stuff in the background is just the devil trying to get to you. Girl, just go with your gut. You don't have to write it down in a weird, freaky journal because somebody in that ashram in India is going to find your weird, freaky journal and be like, ooh, nope. I'm buying one of those silence pins because I don't want to talk to the weird girl. Like,
honestly, she comes off as crazy.
Yeah.
Like and I don't want to, I don't know how to say this without not being offensive, but there's the stigma about women being overly emotional and crazy. And while I think women do have bigger emotional peaks and valleys than maybe men do, she's nuts though.
She's
like
crazy.
She is a genuine freak.
Yeah. Her journey through Italy, I mean, of all the parts in the book, they're not, for those who haven't read the book, they're not specifically titled Eat, Pray, and Love. The book is broken up into 3 parts. I just call it the Eat, the Pray, and the Love part because it's easier for me that way. The first section of the book is definitely like New York City and Italy. And I would say that the Italy portion of the book is the most tolerable of it all. I feel like she's more open in that section, except for when she gets to when she gets to Venice, and she calls it the stinky, slow sinking, mysterious, silent, weird city.
Yeah.
Which made me very angry. Venice is gorgeous. Visit Venice. I bet you that's a website. Visit Venice.com. Yes, it's sinking into the ocean, but all the more reason you should go. It's gorgeous. She should shut her face. And when you're there, go to Murano, buy some glass. Anyways, I feel like that's the best part of the book, and I'm glad I stopped the first time.
The first time around.
Yeah, and I probably should have done it again, because once you're done with Italy, like Italy ends on a weird note, because they have that Thanksgiving dinner, birthday party thing, and they all say what they're thankful for. And it, like, they're all thankful for a lot of things, which is like really sweet. And she's just like not giving up what she's honestly thankful for. And she's still harboring feelings for David. They break up officially while in Italy. She's still sad about her divorce with her husband. But, she picks up, moves on, and goes to India. And India, the only reason, okay, first of all, every time I say India,
I know what you're going to say.
Rouge.
I know what you're going to say.
every single time. India, it's set in India.
Moulin Rouge.
I love it. That's where the book should have switched. It should have switched just to Moulin Rouge.
I can't even say truth. I always want to say I only speak the truth.
Every time I think of Christian Bale, I go, Question.
Yeah, and with each of the places, Italy, India, and Indonesia, the parts that were not only tolerable but enjoyable for me were when she's giving a little bit of history of the locations, of different words, the background of all of that. I found to be very fascinating because a lot of it I actually didn't really know, and I was thinking about it, and I hate to compare her to two men, but I thought of Anthony Bourdain and the way that he writes when he travels, and also Ernest Hemingway's A Movable Feast, and how when you read/watch the two of those, what you're experiencing is the people, the food, the energy of the places that they're at. And it's not just solely about the emotions of what they're feeling. I mean, even when she talks about Italy, she says that she didn't go into a single museum. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, whenever I go to a different location, even when I'm in like freaking like Georgia, like the things I like to do, I like to take very long walks, like long walks. Like I walked from Hell's Kitchen to Harlem in New York with my husband, and it was great. And then we went to the Met. I mean, I like to experience the cities and live in them, and she just wants to experience herself in different locations.
The thing that drove me nuts about that is literally you could throw a rock and hit 5 museums. And she talks constantly about how she is walking through the grounds of the Villa Borghese, which is a huge open park area. It is gorgeous. But there is a house there that you can go into. Spoiler alert, it's a museum. Are you trying to tell me that she's literally steps away from this every day and she never went in? The lie detector test determined that was a lie. But to your point about the authors, you know what she reminded me of when she would do that? The little history bits? It reminded me of Bret Easton Ellis in American Psycho.
Yeah.
Where every other chapter was information about the time period. And I was like, oh, this makes so much sense because she's so crazy. Oh, God, that was really bad. But, yeah. So,
That's
I guess
true, though.
It is. So she gets to India. And we meet Richard from Texas. And the thing that was weird to me about this part is, so she is I guess she's a Manhattan yogi. You know, she goes to like the yoga classes in the city, and she considers herself like a yoga person, but she only started being that way because of David. She took on his characteristics to the point where she took on his yoga guru. That's the only reason she goes to India. She had no interest in this until they were dating maybe a year? We don't know.
It's such a psycho move. I mean, imagine you're dating, let's just like make it smaller. Imagine you're dating someone and you say, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. You know, my number one on my bucket list, Grand Canyon." Then you are on again, off again, and then you go to the Grand Canyon. You're like, "Hi, by the way, I want to make sure that you know that we're broken up."
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
That is so selfish. That is so incredibly selfish. It is. I know that there's that whole quote where like the best revenge is success.
Living well.
Yeah. This is not that, because she doesn't say it outright, but it's definitely, you know what? Take that back. It's definitely a revenge against David, because she's trying to prove to him that, oh, I'm the better yogi. I've been doing it for a year, and look at me. I'm in an ashram in India. like, you don't have to prove how good you are at something to a bunch of people you don't know who don't even care. The India part, I wanted to rip every page out of the book and just set fire to it, because the one thing we forgot to mention is there is a big, huge God overtone to this book.
Yes. Yeah.
That was not apparent at all in Italy.
No.
I think that's why I like the Italy section and nothing else, because she doesn't talk, like, yeah, she has her crazy moment with her book where she talks to herself, but during her divorce and stuff, she starts praying and talking to God. And then in India and in, Indonesia, she is very, like, it gets weirdly religious. And I'm Catholic, and I don't use the G word that often.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the book, because I'm not religious, so was a little wary.
Shocking.
The way that I explain it is I'm agnostic on a good day, atheist on a day, and then like anti-theist on a real bad day. But I'm open to reading about things, but at the same time, I don't want to be, like, harassed about it.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, she defines God as an experience of extreme love. And then she says that God is not dogmatic scripture or some person in the sky. And I'm like, all right, I can get down with that. That's more of a spiritual view. But then in India, she says it's not dogmatic scripture, and she's doing these chants for 4 hours in a day. I mean, how is that dogmatic? Or how is that not dogmatic? How is that not being, part of these ritualistic things? And then having to work for these people, it makes me feel uncomfortable.
It's very cult-like.
It is.
And
it is.
I don't want to upset anybody who's, who follows this sort of like yogi and like guru traditions and things like that, because that's not what we're saying. What we're really saying is, like, she's a flip-flopper. She doesn't know what it is she's looking for. And she starts off by being like, God is just like, her version of God is just someone she can talk to when she has no one else. Or just like a thing where you can just speak out loud. It's like our podcast. I don't know who's listening. Maybe she is listening to this, and I'm sorry, but your book was nuts. But
I'm not sorry.
she's talking to something, and it feels good for her, and that's fine. Then she gets to India, and all of a sudden, God has like a Facebook profile, and he is well defined in her mind.
Yeah.
And it just went against everything that we literally just read. Mm-hmm. Oh, India. It's set in India, and it bothered me. Like, in addition to that, she spends a lot of time not understanding the world and the places that she is going to. And I think that perturbed me so much, that she has so much privilege that she didn't even bother to figure out like what she was going to actually see when she's in India.
Yeah, and this is skipping to Indonesia, the third part, but when she gets to her whole plan is it will be a year, and the 3 places she will stay for 4 months in each, just maybe give or take a week or two. And when she gets to Indonesia, she only gets a visa for 1 month. And she's like, well, but I have to be here for 4. That's my plan. And they're like, yeah, well, you can't. You're here for 1 month. That's the law. Which, by the way, who the fuck doesn't look up how long you get on the visa?
I'll tell you who. Her name's Elizabeth Gilbert.
And then later on, after she's there for a while, she pays for an illegal extension on her visa. Yeah. That way she can do what the medicine man told her. If that is not privilege, and at the same time, I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant.
Go for it, because you're saying everything I wanted to bring up. Go for it. The floor is yours.
At the same time, when she's in Indonesia, she meets this guy what's his Uday. His
Oh,
name's Uday.
this was
And
so
I know
heartbreaking.
it's a heartbreaking story about how he went to America. He is Americanized. He speaks, American slang. He has a wife over there. After the Twin Towers, he ends up getting deported back to Indonesia, but his wife is still in New York, and they will probably never ever see each other again. So she is talking to this guy who got deported from America. Meanwhile, she's on an illegal extended visa. I mean, fuck you.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Like, it's that part, his story broke my heart, and it's such a huge slap in the face that she would do.
It is.
Oh, God. Like, it's like she doesn't learn anything. We can just say that right now. Before we even get to the end of the book, she learned nothing on this just journey of self-discovery, except that selfishness will get you everywhere. Because even in India, like, the whole point of her going to India is that she can get closer to her idea of God, and she spends her whole time complaining about doing the things that these people do to feel closer to their God.
Yeah, and I mean, the book starts with her saying that one of her problems is that she doesn't know who she is. She got with her husband too fast. She got with David too fast. So let's try to spend some time with me. Then the book, spoiler alert, ends with her getting together with a guy too fast who she ends up marrying.
Yeah.
You learned nothing.
Yeah.
You literally did the exact same thing once again, because you haven't. What you've noticed is your own privilege and that you get to do whatever you want to do, but you didn't actually figure out the problems that you create in your own life.
Yeah. The one big thing that drove me nuts too in India, like I keep saying the one big thing, the whole book is my one big thing. So, spoiler alert, the whole book bothered me. Before we get to Indonesia, because I think this book is easy to wrap up, with a big problem in Indonesia that drove me insane. But in India, she has this moment where she's talking to Richard from Texas, and she's talking to all of her new friends because she's, the social butterfly of India. And she's telling them that she really just wants her husband not to hate her.
I know.
I'm sorry. Can we talk about how you decided to divorce him? You wanted to leave him. You wanted to leave him so bad that you gave him everything because you wanted out, and now you're like, hey, boo, don't hate me. Let's be friends. No, I don't want your friendship. Like, Taylor Swift released a new album, for anyone who doesn't know. And she has this song on the album where she talks, it's called Happiness, okay? And she talks about, like, there were happy times, there'll be happy times without me, but there were happy times with me too. Yeah. But you can't force him. You can't force him to want to be okay. And that's what it sounds like she's trying to do. And she even goes on to the roof of the ashram and has this imaginary conversation with him where she's like, oh, we're cool, right? Yeah, totally cool. Ugh. Great. You're feeding your own ego at an ashram in India where you're supposed to be letting yourself release. Instead, you're just feeding. And it made me sad for her that she can't like she's so full of herself and makes a point at the beginning of the book to say that she's never had, she from the age of 15, she's never had more than like a week where she's not attached to a man. And she has to justify, she has to make sure everything's okay so she can keep moving on. Your life isn't a book. Unfortunately, yeah, it is, I guess, because you wrote this one. But you can't have a perfect ending because you want it.
I try to be a good person.
Yeah.
And there have been moments in my life. Thank you. There have been moments in my life where I fucked up. Okay. And I think back, and there are some people where if we ran into each other and they like gave me the stink eye, like, yep, I deserve it because I was a real fucking asshole. So I'm not going to go to them and be like, but love me, please.
Yeah.
No, I deserve some some bad thoughts my way. And I think all of us have that. But to think that everyone should still love you, and the fake idea that there can be closure with an ex, I'm sorry, there cannot. I think that some closures are necessary when you have kids together, when you are partners on something. You kind of have to make that happen. And I know that some people are able to conclude a relationship and still be friends, but I think that's really hard, and I think it's very mythological. So she's living in La La Land.
Oh yeah, she's living in a privileged society. Like you and I have had long relationships with people who were awful. I'm going on the record, awful people, and those gladly are over. And yeah, like, I don't need, that's my closure. Like, if you aren't happy in the relationship that you're in, you leaving is the closure. This book made me never want to go to India, which is awful. Because now I'm worried I'm going to go to India and just be so full of myself that I can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
That won't happen. I'm going to go to India one day and I'm going to have the time of my life. Because that's the other thing. She was supposed to go. She makes a point of being like, I'm only going to stay at this ashram for like, maybe like a month. And then I'm going to travel around and I'm going to go see the Bollywood studios and I'm going to go see the elephants and I'm going to go do this, that, the other thing. And then she's like, I had a spiritual journey. So I'm going to keep dropping money and staying. Because that's the other thing about this ashram that we didn't bring up is that you have to apply to get in.
Yeah.
You have to prove that you're such a dedicated yogi, of which she apparently is, of 1 year, I guess, because of David. And once you get in, it's like, then you work for them and stuff. Like, I'm sure this ashram costs thousands of dollars.
I'm sure it does too. And it makes me feel uncomfortable, the whole business of it. Plus, there's the thing with they want you to be, it's so weird. They want you to be like clean of spirit. So you can't be too close to something like a divorce.
Yeah.
And she's literally like weeks between the cutoff of something major in your life happening like that and the time where her divorce happened. So once again, she's riding on that privilege.
Yep. Like she learns nothing. When she gets to Indonesia, should we talk about my major issue with white savior in Indonesia?
Oh my God.
I have been holding, so I read the book, we watched the movie, I was holding on to a lot of, like, anger. And like Richard from Texas said, just let it out. So I unloaded a lot of stuff on Jesse before we recorded this episode. And now Jesse's really mad about Indonesia. So we get to Indonesia. She talks about how cheap it is in Bali, which it is. Christina, if you and I were to go to Bali right now with whatever money you have, we'd be Balinese billionaires. Like, no lie.
We'd be ballin'.
Ballin' in Bali. Oh. Oh my God. But yeah, the exchange rate is just so different that your money goes a lot farther there, but their money doesn't go nearly as far. Like you're paying like $1,000 for a tube of toothpaste, but $1,000 in US dollars is like 50 cents. So it's a weird it's a weird exchange rate situation. And she's staying at a nice hotel. She goes back to visit the medicine man. And he initially does not remember her. And she's shocked by this. She says it's been 2 years since she saw him. And she is shocked and appalled that this man who said she was going to come back to Bali and help him learn English does not remember her.
So I don't think he remembers her at all.
No, I don't think he does either. I think he's faking it. 100%. I don't think he remembered her at all.
I don't think so either. And there's the part where what he says, nice to meet you. And then she goes, oh no, you don't say that when you know someone. You say nice to see you. You only say nice to meet you when it's the first time. Bitch, he don't remember you.
Yeah.
He's faking it.
Not only that, English is his second language. Leave the man alone. Like,
Yeah.
but she makes such a big deal about him not remembering her. And the other reason why I don't think he actually remembers her is because every time she leaves, he says to her, like, bring back your American friends. I don't have much money because of the bombings. And I'm like, girl, you know that he's, like, lying to you, right? Because he just wants you to bring him money, right?
Yep.
Like, but the real issue with Indonesia is she meets a medicine woman who like helps her with, like, she cuts herself because she gets hit by a bus. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I've been hit by a car. I don't mean to laugh.
Laughing at that.
I imagine
Mean
she was
Girls.
just. I imagine she was doing something real stupid too on that bike. Sorry. Anyways, she gets hit by a bus. She has to see the medicine woman who helps her out. And the medicine woman is basically like, oh, you're my sister now, blah, blah, blah. And we learn about the Balinese family structure where until you're married, you live in, like, a compound type thing where everyone's houses are together and you, like, share a courtyard. So you live with your family there, or you move to your husband's family compound. And the medicine woman is also divorced, so she has nowhere to live. And Liz really bonds with her over this shared, like, depression about being divorced or something. And what we find out is that the medicine woman, they're raising the rent where she's at, and she's going to have to move. And she's, like, sad because she has no money, and if she has to move, she loses, like, all of her clients. I really don't want to talk about it.
We have to.
I know. Oh, God, it makes me so mad. It's right around Liz's birthday. So she sends out this mass email to all of her friends being like, usually for my birthday, I make you guys all come over and bring me wine and, real, Upper West Side white lady crap. But this year, I'd really appreciate it if you could donate money to this medicine woman so we can help her buy a house. And her friends do donate money, and she ends up getting, like, $18,000, which ends up being millions in Balinese money. And she just gives it to this woman because this woman did not ask her for help. At no point does this woman say, hey, Liz, my American friend, can you loan me some money so I can find a place to live? And Liz gives her all this money like, hey, surprise, my friends got all this money together for you so you could buy a house. So you don't have to, worry about that, because that's what we do. We help each other. And then she gets mad because she doesn't understand Balinese culture, and that as a healer, this woman needs to, like, feel the right, energies in the space and all this stuff. And yes, sure, Liz writes in this part where, like, the woman's asking her for more money or something.
Here's the thing about that is that she is asking for more money because she found a place where not only can she have a house, but that she can own the actual land and she can build a hotel. And Liz gets mad because she thinks that she's getting taken advantage of. And then her boyfriend is saying, well, that's, the Indian ways. You try to get as much as you can. Now, putting this aside, okay, this woman, okay. So what she's asking for is basically generational money. It's the difference between having a house where we can live here now and, hey, you have money. If you give me a little bit more, I can not only have a house, but I can actually make money for generations upon generations of my family. I mean, that is life-changing. That's not just a home. That is an actual establishment for her children and her children's children. And the amount of money, I want to say she asked for another, like, $20,000, which sure is a lot of money, but the book and the movie and all of the crazy money that was made off of this, it's estimated that she's worth $25 million now. And $20,000 of 25 million is like point, I don't know,
Yeah.
5%, 7% of what she made off of touring around with disposable people. It's sickening.
This is where I had like, India was hard to read. This is where I would look at the book and be like, I cannot read this anymore. I cannot.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
when you order too much food and you're looking at it going, I'm an idiot. Why am I still doing this? That was me to this
Yeah.
book when it got to this part, because this bothered, like, she pressures her to pick
She
a place.
lies.
Yeah, she lies to her and is like, oh, my friends are going to be real mad if you don't pick a place, and forces her to move on to a small section of land to appease her own well-being so she can go home and tell all of her friends, we did a great thing, you guys.
And when she lies to her, the medicine woman is scared.
Yeah.
And like I think she says something like she starts to shake or
Yeah.
something like that. The thing that made me sad about that part is that had she been honest, like just go, look, I see what you're doing. I understand what this would mean to you. I'm really just not comfortable with it. I got my friends to donate. I match their donations. This is it. If you want to get something now, you know, that's great. And I'm sorry I can't do more, but I just don't feel comfortable in the situation. Had she said something like that, I would be a lot less judgmental about it.
Same. It comes across as very disingenuous. It's
does.
like giving somebody a gift and then waiting for them to use it and constantly reminding them, like, oh, I noticed you're not using that fancy mug I bought you. Why don't you use the fancy mug I bought you? And forcing them to do so. Like, it's borderline abusive.
Yeah.
Like, it's taking a mental toll on this woman, and it's obvious when she's shaking and about to cry because she thinks her money's going to get
know.
taken away from her.
And at the end of the book, when she's reflecting on her travels, she boasts about the fact that she bought her a house.
Oh, there's a whole section at the end of the book where she lists every name of everybody who donated money. And it's both like self-congratulatory and also shaming.
Yes.
Like, look at my friends who actually care. Your name's not in the book because you didn't donate. Like, that's how it comes across to me. And I'm like, I don't know you, but should I have given money? Because apparently that's what I'm, like, it's so problematic. And it's all in the background to her, quote unquote, falling in love with Felipe. This one comes out of left field too. And she meets him at some bar because that other woman introduces her to him. And he's supposed to be like 30 years older than her, right?
No, it's not that big. I want to say it's like 17 years. I think that she's in her 30s at this point, and he's in his 50s. And I remember doing the math. It's close to 20.
Yeah.
But it's not 30. I don't.
Yeah,
think.
that's right. I made a point to write down that she's like about to be 32 when she's in Bali, because I'm 32.
Yeah.
I was like,
right, and exactly.
I was like, should I be finding myself? Bye, Jessie. I have to go find myself.
Well, yeah, at the very beginning, when I was still on board with this book, she says that she's 31. Her and her husband have been together for 8 years, and they've been married for 6 years. Well, I happen to be 31. We've been together 8 years and married for 6 years. So I'm like, oh, okay. And then things take a turn. I'm like, oh, no,
Yeah.
we're not the same.
You are her and she is you.
No. I'm very happy, guys. I don't need to do this bullshit.
But it's just, the relationship is weird because yeah, she's only there for a few months and she's like falling in love with him, and then she humble brags about her yoga body.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she can have good sex because she has a yoga body. I was like, I'm like, I'm going to skip. Just go flip till this is over because I can't with you. And then she gets a UTI. She gets a UTI in Bali.
I liked that she includes the UTI in the book. It's like little things like that are just human things that happen to people, especially women. I like when little details are in stories and in movies, but at the same time, I'm like, you're really closing out your book with a UTI? That's a weird choice.
But, I thought about that too. I was like, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about this. And then I looked back on it and I was like, because she's still bragging. She's still bragging that, I spent so much time being celibate and now I'm a free woman. I got my groove back and I got a UTI because of it. And it's like, whoa. Listen, no, don't be excited about this. Like, stop for a minute. She's nuts.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. It's the thing where one of my favorite things about people is I like people who don't take themselves too seriously. I like people who can laugh at themselves. And you're completely right. When she's talking about the UTI, she's not like, listen, guys, we went to the bone zone so ding hard. I've got a fucking UTI. No, she's like, we are having so much sex.
Yeah. She's kind of trying to be like coy about it when she goes to the medicine woman. And it's like, is there anything you can do to help me? Because, I have a UTI because I don't want to. I mean, we're just like, we're never apart for more than like 2 seconds. So like, and it's like, nobody cares. Yeah, I get it. You're the white Stella and you got your groove back. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
I was so done with her at that point that I was like, call David. Find out how David feels about you getting a UTI. I want your depression to come back, Mrs. I don't need antidepressants. Actually, that was mean of me. I shouldn't say that. She had really bad depression. But I wanted something because everything just wrapped up too good for her.
I don't believe her. The book closes out, one of the ways that it closes out is that she claims that she has a dream in which every yogi or, spiritual leader that she has encountered up to this point, including the fucking dead guy in India that she never even fucking met, comes to her in a dream. Seriously, Star Wars Force Ghost, Blue style, talking to her, giving her their blessing to get dick. That's literally how it ends.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Number 1, that dream did not happen. Number 2, go fuck yourself.
I think when we I think we can safely pivot from the book to the movie and just say the book and the movie are similar but very not.
Yeah.
Like, there is she has no depression in the book. No. Her relationship with David seems almost normal until David starts acting like a dick. And I'm like, I'm 100% certain in the book, I kept pausing the movie and just being like, Jesse, this didn't happen in the book. And Jesse's like, oh, okay. by the time we got to Bali, Jesse was like, listen, if you pause the movie one more time, we're going to be here until next week. I get it. They're different. Just play. And I was like, okay.
I do that to Carlos regularly. He gets so annoyed when I like pausing a movie all the time to talk.
It's just nothing added up.
Yeah, so the movie is it was released in 2010, which is 4 years after the book comes out. It's directed by, of all people, Ryan Murphy, and this is only his second movie. He only did Running with Scissors beforehand. He's got the prom movie coming up, which I know you have a lot of thoughts about.
I do.
Aside from that, he's better known for TV. So he's done American Horror Story, Nip Tuck, Pose, Ratched.
He did Glee.
The movie stars Julia Roberts. Yeah, Glee.
Yeah. Oh, do you know why he ended up directing this?
Yeah, she wanted
Gary Marshall
to direct, but he couldn't, which makes more sense, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there would have been more heart to it if Gary Marshall had directed it.
I agree. Yeah. And with Ryan Murphy directing, I'm not a huge Ryan Murphy fan, to be honest, and he does a lot of campy stuff. Everything kind of is in this really weird, viewpoint that he has. I was surprised with this movie on how boring it is and how he does seem to have some sort of restraint in what he does, but there's still those like Ryan Murphy fingerprints throughout where, you know, they make jokes about Cher and I don't know. It's whatever.
It's like he because it was only like his second film, his imprint's not nearly as strong, but he was able to subtly put himself in different places.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, you know, that's all well and good. But it just, oh, God. My favorite thing that Ryan Murphy has ever done is season 3 of American Horror Story, because let's all be honest, that's the best season of American Horror Story.
I think American Horror Story is pretty good from seasons 1 through 3, and then there are moments that I don't know whether or not they're good, but I really like them from season 5, The Hotel. And then aside from that, I don't like it.
Same. Brad Pitt also produced this film. I don't know if you watched the credits. Brad Pitt was a producer on this film, which I was like, listen, I knew you had a lot going on with, you know, your marriages. Like, I don't know if you took this seriously or not. But apparently this book was a book that was recommended to her to read, Julia Roberts, and she loved it. And
well, it was recommended by Oprah.
Well, I think Julia Roberts read it first.
Oh.
I might be wrong about that, but I do know this was an Oprah's book club book. Oprah loved this book. Oprah loved this book. Julia Roberts loved this book. We did not love this book. I guess we're the odd ones out. So, yeah, the movie definitely paints everything in such a different light. They make her out to be so different. So different.
It's so weird because so many of the details from the book, like in the movie when she gives the money to the medicine woman to buy a house, it completely omits the portion about, you know, her trying to get more money to get the hotel. So it makes her seem better in the movie, and yet at the same time that kind of like white savior thing is increased even more because, for example, with Thanksgiving, when they have Thanksgiving in Italy and she's like, okay, so you cannot make a turkey at 9 o'clock at night, it takes all day, then the guy actually decides to make turkey breast instead, whereas in the movie they mess up the turkey, she laughs in his face, and then the next morning she makes turkey for breakfast for everybody.
It's like they Disneyfied the portions of the book that didn't, that they knew were going to be looked at and scrutinized in a different way. Like even in India, like they make that whole scene where she's talking to her husband in India, where she's asking for his forgiveness. They turn it into a "I'm letting you go" sort of like "let's dance" situation. And it's like, what? I think the thing that the movie really did wrong, too, like, the book, we don't get a lot of information about the husband. The movie adds him in a little bit more. And, you know, so you're left with this awkward, like, why'd they break up sort of thing. And I was still team husband in the book. The movie made me 100% team husband when they show their first dance at the wedding.
The husband, too, is played by Billy Crudup, who is one of those guys, if you know, like, his background history, I kind of think he's a bit of an asshole, but I do like him as in certain performances. So when he showed up as the husband and then James Franco plays David, I'm like, look at these two assholes. Like, of course, they're the ones that get cast as the exes because they are exes. I mean, you can attribute them to, I think everybody has an ex that are like these two guys, but I like him in the movie.
I really did too. He was so likable. Like when she's with her lawyer, that's a big change, and they're discussing all the legal stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna represent myself because I took 1 year of law school. Like, they're saying all this stuff to make him look like a like a real idiot, and he's just pouring his heart out to her. I was like, stop the movie, just get back together. He loves you. And maybe that's just like the Lifetime Channel original movie and me being like, y'all should be together. But the fact that they put so much emphasis on him and her right at the start of the movie really solidified the fact that I like the husband a hell of a lot more.
Well, he says the thing about why couldn't you find yourself in our
Yeah.
marriage? Why did you have to, which, basically meaning like, if you needed time, just ask for it. If you need to, have time away from me, that's one thing, but you don't necessarily have to cut me off in order to find out who you are.
Yeah, I felt like the movie did a real disservice to Elizabeth Gilbert and made her, like you said, because they cut out all that stuff in Indonesia with her asking for more money and stuff, it comes off as an even heavy-handed version of the white saviorism.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with her breaking up with her husband. Like, he still comes out on top of this whole thing because he's the voice of reason. Why couldn't she just ask for that time? Because he would have given it to her. And instead, she comes off as so much more selfish in that moment than she did in the book.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe Julia Roberts didn't actually like the book.
Yeah, and her all of her friends in the book are condensed into Viola Davis, and there's a part where she says, I don't remember this in the book, and maybe it is, but I don't remember it from the book, but she's basically saying how when she got married, she gets obsessed with, creating the house and decorating, and how all of that isn't her, and Viola Davis responds with, well, you're just trading that in for traveling.
Yeah. Everyone else in this movie understands what the problem was with the book. And I don't understand why they had to make it into a movie. Just so we could talk about it years later.
One of the problems I have with the movie too, like, did you read about all of the merchandising that they did with it?
No, I honestly, I spent most of my time reading about Liz Gilbert and just being very angry about things.
This movie is a little bit of an anomaly, because when you think about merchandising, you think Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, kids movies. They had a merchandising little mini empire with this, where they were selling, like, jewelry stores had Eat, Pray, Love necklaces that are in the shape of a lotus petal and says, I deserve something beautiful. So a bunch of her different quotes. World Market, who I love, and now I'm like kind of judging, they sold official prayer beads that looked like the ones. Yes. They sold prayer beads that look like the ones that are on the cover of the book for $4.99. The Home Shopping Network had like a 3-day orgy fest of nothing but Eat, Pray, Love jewelry that they sold on the network. And then like Lancome lip gloss was sold with the Eat, Pray, Love title because Julia Roberts also has...
She's the spokesperson for Lancome.
Yeah, and nothing says finding yourself on a spiritual journey like lip gloss.
Lip gloss and some jewelry because, let's get real, I deserve it. Which, that is so funny that they would put I deserve something beautiful on jewelry when literally in the book, and emphasized once again in the movie when she's in Italy, they talk about how American consumerism is just like, you deserve a break today and this bud's on you. And Italians are very much like, well, duh. That's why I'm going to do the thing. So for them to market jewelry that literally says the thing that they make fun of in the book is blowing my mind right now. I can't. And you couldn't give that woman any extra money for the rest of her land for her hotel? Like, oh, I am so mad.
Exactly. And there's a part that I thought was done really well in the movie when she buys the lingerie because she's looking at it and the friend's like, well, you should buy it. This is in Italy. And she's like, well, who would I wear it for? And she goes, yourself. And she doesn't buy it, but then like the next day she does. And she wears the lingerie and then she makes herself this like really beautiful Italian plate with asparagus and cheese. And then she sits down and just is. She just bees, and she's in the lingerie eating the food and just taking time for herself. Like, you can buy things for yourself to make yourself happy. You can treat yourself to things, but a t-shirt sold for $45 at Macy's is not
Yeah.
is not the way to do that.
No, it's I'm never going to live that down. I'm so mad. I'm so mad about this merchandising thing. Oh my goodness. And the movie is just really weird and watered down and cuts out a lot of scenes that should be
Yeah.
in. Like, there's a part, and it's written about first of all, the movie never talks about her reaching God at the ashram, which was a huge
No.
part of the book.
Yeah.
And how she feeds off the energy of all those other people so that she can reach enlightenment. That was fun too. But there's a part when she's in India where she's trying really hard to focus. So she goes outside and she's like, I'm going to meditate outside. It's a beautiful night. I'm going to do it. And she gets attacked by mosquitoes. And they talk about it in detail in the book. She's like, I've never sat with my pain. And she's sitting with it. And then in the movie, it's like, Richard from Texas tells her, girl, go outside and meditate. And she's like, okay. And then the next scene, she's covered in mosquito bites. And it's like, it's daytime. What is happening? Where's that whole did they cut? Okay. And then she meets an elephant.
There's a lot of stuff where the lack of respect that she has in the book is increased, where in Italy the people are, I mean, she's making fun of them. It's like they're making fun of how they use their hands. The woman that she meets who kind of judges her that she's divorced, and the place that she stays turns into this like shack.
Oh yeah.
It's like everything's kind of made fun of. Like, look at these countries who are lesser than us.
I can tell you right now, Jesse and I, the street that she lives off of, Jesse and I spent a lot of time watching the movie going, hold on, pause it. If you go around the corner there, is that the gelato place that we used to like to eat at? Yeah, okay, good.
Aww.
Like we could map out all of Rome based off of the locations that they were showing in the movie, which was really fun for us. It was a very fun experience for us to do together. But I've stayed in like the Verbos and the Airbnbs. I've stayed in hotels, stuff like that in Rome. I've never stayed in a place where they have scaffolding holding up the ceiling. Yeah, I stayed in a place in Venice with Jesse where the tub was not a tub. It's like a square. Oh my God, I don't know how to explain this. It's like a square box that you sit in, and it has the armature for the shower head, but it's not hooked up. There's no hookup for it to stay up for you to shower, like stand up and shower. It's meant for you to take a bath. Like you sit here and you take a bath, and you're supposed to use this thing to wash yourself. But we're American, we take more showers than we do baths. We don't participate in the art of doing nothing. We're constantly doing something. So when it got to that scene where the woman's telling her, you just keep running the water back and forth, like that made total sense to me. I'm like, what else would you do? And Julia Roberts stands there like, what do you mean by that? And it's like, you get the water, you bring it back. She's like, well, what if I have to clean myself? You get the water and you put it in the tub. What are you not understanding about the situation? But yeah, they spend a lot of time really over-exaggerating Italian culture as if Americans would never understand it if they just showed normal people walking around. I have never seen an Italian woman sit at a table like when she points out and she goes, no, that's a Roman woman. I've never seen a Roman woman in a sweater feeding steak to a dog at a sit-down restaurant.
Well, and that part too, they subtly suggest that she is a sex worker and laugh at her because of it.
Oh, yeah. And then there's also, every time they show young men in Rome, like the young Roman guy who runs up and slaps her friend on the butt, or the other guys who are like harassing those women over by the Piazza Nerona. Nerona? I think I said that wrong. Whatever, the piazza. It's bothersome because they even make a point in the book to say that when she was there when she was younger, men were like that. But now that she's there as an older woman, Italy has changed and men are more respectful. Anyone watching Eat, Pray, Love that is not Italy, although I have noticed I do speak with my hands a lot more than normal, than the average person. That one part was not false. You do speak with your hands.
Sometimes on this podcast, I can hear your hands like slap things.
I move them around so much that Jesse, when we're editing it, he's like, you have to stop. And I'm like, I can't. I have to emphasize. And he's like, no one's watching you. And I'm like, someone could be. I just emphasized that too. But yeah, it's just, the book and the movie feel so separate while still being connected. It's not like American Psycho where, yeah, there were changes, but you could accept them. It just felt like they were trying too hard to make her be so good.
Something that makes the movie a lot more tolerable is that if this were a truer adaptation, you would have constant voiceover from Liz speaking. And that's not the case. There is just like a little bit, but it's not constant. The lack of her like internal monologue constantly rolling out makes it a little bit easier because frankly, her writing style, it's like she has a gift of writing quotes that are more suited for fortune cookies or Hallmark cards or slapped over Marilyn Monroe's face and touted as a Marilyn Monroe quote, and it's not. And then under deeper scrutiny, they are completely worthless. It's like she says these things where when she first says it, like, oh, wow, that sounds pretty good. And then when you think about it, it's like, wait a minute, what is she actually talking about? Like, there's one where she says something like, there's a crack in everyone, that's how the light of God gets in. I'm like, are you talking about the asshole? Like, what are you talking about? I don't understand it. And it reminds me of like when politicians talk. Like there's the joke of during the 2020 Democratic debates, and Buttigieg said something like the shape of democracy affects democracy or something. Like he said nothing. And that's exactly how she writes.
Oh yeah, it's empty. It's like when you have to finish a paper for school, so you overdo it with the wording of something so that you reach your word count. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, and with that stripped from the movie, it does make it a little bit more tolerable, but the movie is no less shallow.
Yeah. It's both are very problematic, and I wouldn't suggest the book or the movie to anybody.
I wouldn't
either. Oh God, good. Because it's just it does nothing. Like, okay, I have this review from Goodreads, which if you don't know what Goodreads is, it's a great website where you can track the books that you've been reading. You can, read reviews for books. I like going on there for the book reviews. This one from this person, I wonder if you saw this when you were on there. Reading the title and the premise of this book will mislead you greatly as to what you are going to find inside. This book is not uplifting or spiritual in any way. Elizabeth Gilbert is going through life unaffected by anything except her own whims. She is so selfish and self-congratulating, trying to disguise it as self-deprecating and humble. Her writing style isn't so bad, it's the content. She continuously looks out at the world and how it's affecting her, not accepting responsibility for creating all the unfortunate situations in her life that led up to her traveling to the Three Eyes. Although she said nothing about her ex-husband except that he was completely unreasonable and hated her, I wonder why, I still felt sympathetic for him. She gave no convincing reason for him leaving her other than that she was sad. She spent her time in Italy eating and congratulating herself on not having sex with a good-looking Italian man. She spent time in India meditating, although it sounded more like complaining to me. She does add a nice little bit about how she's glad she's not slaving away in the fields in the excruciating heat like some of the native women she sees. And she spent her time in Indonesia feeling superior to the natives who apparently want to take you for all they can. She also decides to end her sexual sabbatical when she meets a slightly older gentleman from Brazil who caters to her self-absorption and vanity. We should have just read that and called the podcast over.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess from the book and the movie, I can take away why people would gravitate towards this. Because there are a lot of people like her in the world. People who think it's their right to be selfish, and they have the money to do it. So I can understand why this was done and this got as big as it did. But I think for people like me, I could never understand why you would do this.
I was surprised by the time that we got to the India portion, just how much I did not like the book. Because I recalled when the movie came out how big it was. And I remember people really digging it and liking it. So I thought, is it me? Am I the problem? And I try to keep an open mind when we do this stuff, especially something that I am not as familiar with. So I waited until after I read the book, watched the movie to look up the reviews. The movie has like a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh. It's largely panned. The book, yeah, on Goodreads, on Amazon, there are plenty of 5 stars, but most of them are a little bit more not liking it. Like, I don't know how the hype got so inflated.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can remember when the movie came out, and I can remember people I knew seeing the movie and really liking it. And I was just like, I have no desire to watch a film about a woman finding herself. And that carried me through until we decided to read it, because I honestly, the first time I read the book, the first time I picked it up, I can tell you it was my first year in New York. And that for me was like a transformative time. I'm like, oh, I'm in a new place. I have no family here. You know, I really don't have friends here. Like, it's a weird time to be alone in a foreign city and you're working all the time. And I picked up the book and I was like, you know, maybe this woman who also had to find herself, maybe she'll offer something to me. I made it through Italy and I was like, I don't think this is going to do anything. And then I stopped reading it. And that was something like, all the reviews are people who struggled to get through it. Even some of the 5 stars that I read on Goodreads, people were like, it took me a while to get through, but once I did, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think that should be our sign. Like, she talks about getting signs from God about what she's doing is right and all this stuff. I think everyone who has a struggle reading this book, that's your sign to stop.
Yeah. I think that part of the appeal could possibly be just fantasy. Just wanting to pretend that you are her, going to these places and eating these things and doing these things. That the idea that you two can go on these fantasy adventures, you know, just turns into escapism.
Yeah. Now that we've talked about the book and the movie. Now that we've trashed both the book and the movie. Don't even get me started on the meet cute in the movie when she's in Bali.
God.
I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it.
I will say that the one thing that gave me a lot of pleasure, because I really didn't, aside from, like I said, like the history and, you know, all of that in the book, I did enjoy. That's about it. The one big thing, and I think this might have been a lot of reason why people bought movie tickets, is Julia Roberts. I mean, I love
she's gorgeous.
Julia Roberts. And she's gorgeous. She's funny. She has charisma. She's able to sell this so well. I mean, she's just believable. And it's almost like a bait and switch, where it's Julia Roberts and you love her, but then you think about what she's doing and saying, and you have to acknowledge that it's not right. But I miss Julia Roberts. I grew up with Julia Roberts, so that was nice hanging out with her for way too long. 2.5 hours is too long, but it was nice being in her presence again.
It's nice being, it's like a homey thing. Her laugh, her smile, everything. It's all like, every time I see her, all I can think of though is like Notting Hill. And I'm just like, just do another one of those.
See, I always think, I grew up watching, like, my mom really loved 3 movies. It was Pretty Woman, Mystic Pizza, and Steel Magnolias.
Oh my God.
So those are the 3.
We can't talk about Steel Magnolias because I'll cry.
Actually, we could. It was a play.
We can
could
definitely
read the play and then watch the
listen.
movie.
We can definitely do it. I'm all about it. But honestly, Julia Roberts in that movie makes me cry. Ugh.
Yeah, especially the bad wig.
Yeah, but Dolly Parton's in it too, and I love her.
End.
Oh my god. Oh god. Now we're just a Steel Magnolias podcast. Pasta and Magnolias. Welcome. No. Now that we're done ripping this to shreds, literal like this is Cinderella's dress, and we are the evil stepsisters. We ripped this to shreds. I'm sure you did some research on Elizabeth Gilbert as well.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
first interesting fact, she met her husband while she worked at the original Coyote Ugly Saloon, which I found to be like pretty crazy. But going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, where she has that weird little flub about David, it is definitely mentioned that the marriage to her first husband, Michael, ended when Gilbert left him for another man. She left him for David.
She found herself in that ditch.
Like, this is where I'm like, I didn't look up anything about her until after I read the book. Although I did know a little bit about her because there's a big revelation about her life that came out, and I remember seeing it on Good Morning America and being like, ugh, whatever, nobody cares. Apparently a lot of people cared. I just didn't. So I already knew that part. So when I was reading Eat, Pray, Love, I was like, when do we get to that part that I saw on Good Morning America? Apparently not for another like 40 years. But this changed the entire book and the entire movie for me, was when I found out that she actually left her husband for David. And it, once again, hashtag team husband.
Well, and she leaves him for David. Then she gets with the guy in Indonesia in the book, and then they get married. She writes a book about how her life has changed. Actually, it's Eat, Pray, Love, like the squeakle.
Oh, it's called
it's
called Committed. A Skeptic Makes Peace with Marriage.
And then she cheats on him with a woman, and they get divorced.
Well, she doesn't technically cheat on him. This is where it gets weird. This is the part that didn't make sense to me, and I remember. Okay, so she marries a guy from Bali. She marries a guy from Bali because they open up a jewelry store or something, and he can't stay forever. Like, he can't, if he comes to the United States, like he'll get deported and won't be able to come back or something. That's why they get married.
Well, let me stop you real quick too. What they open is an import-export of Asian goods. So once again, she's making money off of this culture without like giving back to it at all.
You think she was the one who was supplying all those prayer beads? She's the importer.
I know she made money off of it.
And the description of that Committed book just sounds like a bunch of crap. Where it sounds like the opening to When Harry Met Sally, where they're talking about like people being married and why, and then she doesn't follow any of their rules. But I don't think she actually cheated on him, because she said in her Facebook post, like, first of all, they get like their divorce or whatever, and then it comes out later that she announces on a Facebook post that they're like separating or whatever, and then a few months after that, she writes that she's in a relationship with her best friend, her female best friend, and that she learned that she loved her after she found out that she was dying of cancer. That's why I don't think that they cheated on each other. She was so self-absorbed with her thought of loss for her friend that she said that she was madly in love with her friend.
Yeah, but didn't she say it like that it was more than friendship, like that her love was different, and then didn't they do like a commitment ceremony where it wasn't legally binding, but they were married? Yeah,
they claimed that they were married, but it was never actually a legally binding thing. And then
it was too much, guys.
Well, her friend, like her wife, I guess, dies in 1999, or no, 1998. In 1999, she gets married to another person. She marries Simon MacArthur, a UK-based photographer who was best friends with the woman she was madly in love with. And then they got a divorce.
Yeah.
All of her relationships feel like they are written so they all feel like they are generated for her to write a book about.
Right.
None of it feels real. None of it feels like she's doing it for the right reasons. It's like being on a reality show. It's like, I guess, like I've never watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, but I feel like she's a contestant on that show trying out all these different people.
It's the thing where, and I know we're coming off as so judgmental, but it's hard not to. And for me, people make mistakes. You know, people make mistakes in life. People do things that are selfish. If you cheat on somebody, okay, you cheated on somebody, and that's a horrible thing to do. Don't do it again. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, it's hard to not go, maybe stop.
Yeah.
Maybe don't do that anymore. And for her, like, she seems to, the way that she talks about herself, she seems to be more of a free spirit. So maybe stop getting married.
Exactly.
Maybe let's stop the marriage. I think we need to put her in timeout for a little bit.
I think the court should be like, listen, we can't do this. We cannot approve your marriage certificate for another 5 years. Like, slow your roll. Because at that point, it's getting to the point where we're edging on Lifetime Channel original movie where a woman kills her husband to get the money and then moves on to the next guy. She's so quick to assume everything is somebody else's fault. Yeah. And she just jumps on to the next thing. And it's like, no, she covers up her divorce from the guy in Bali by saying oh, it's an amicable split, blah, blah, blah. Then she announces that she's in love with her best friend. And then she's like, oh, well, I guess that played into the divorce.
I guess.
Hi, I would imagine if Jesse came up to me and was like, oh yeah, blah, 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 I'm also in love with my best friend. But I was all like, oh yeah, it's amicable, you guys. We're just splitting. And then he's married to his best friend. I think people would start to notice.
Yeah, and it goes back to us in not disliking the husband or Billy Crudup. The idea that, he's being a dick about the divorce. Yes, he's making it difficult. Yes, he's going after all the money. But also, did you gaslight him?
Yeah.
Hey, Liz. Hey, Liz, quick question. Did you gaslight him? Because maybe if you were lying to him the entire time, he may have acted like a dick. Because that's how you respond to being lied to.
I think I wish that we could... I wish she would have just elaborated on that in the book. I'm much more willing to forgive an unlikable character who owns up to the crap that they did that they know is wrong than somebody who decides, oh, we don't have to go into the details. Well, no, I think we should. If you're going to make him such a big part of your book and such a big part of your transformation, maybe you tell us why you are the issue. Maybe you need to understand why you were the problem there.
Did you ever watch the show on Netflix, Love?
No.
With what's her face from Community? Okay, it's kind of cringeworthy at times, but I would recommend it. You'll get really angry with certain episodes, but the thing about it is that they are very honest. Where there's a part where they have an open relationship and she sleeps with somebody else and then she feels really bad about it. And then she's like, okay, we can't do this anymore. We have to be just together. And there's another part where she looks at him and she's like, I'm a mess. I'm crazy. I'm, borderline alcoholic. I shouldn't be doing these things. And he's like, yeah, but I love you. And it's not necessarily healthy all the time, and she is they're both kind of unlikable characters, but they're honest about it. They are a little bit more, tolerable because they are self-aware enough to see when they're being bad.
Yeah, and see, that's something I can get behind. And if you have an understanding of the bad stuff that you've done and you know that what you did is bad and you will own up to it, it's so much easier for me to like you as a person when you know it was wrong.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, I think that's the big umbrella aspect to both the book and the movie, is that she never saw herself in the wrong to begin with. So she continued her pattern through the 3 eyes with the 3 Ds, not understanding that there's a deeper problem here and you can't hide it with pasta and yoga and sex with a man in Bali.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that if every time you do it, something goes wrong, I think you have to look for the most common denominator, right?
Well, it's the quote in Justified. Timothy Oliphant plays Raylan Givens, and he says, I mean, this is a quote that's general, but I like it when he says it. And he says, you ran into an asshole in the morning, you ran into an asshole. You ran into an asshole all day, you are the asshole.
Isn't that where we get God from? Isn't that the crack in our bodies that let us God in?
Yeah. That's one of the most sacrilegious things I've ever said, but
listen, it's fine. Listen, I'm good with God. He's all around. God is all around me. Oh God, I need to stop watching Love Actually.
You know, we watch that movie every year. It's a very special movie for us, and recently, because Carlos does this really funny Alan Rickman impersonation from Love Actually, and he doesn't even speak words. He just goes like, and so I'll do the thing with his secretary when she's like, I don't want something I need. I want something pretty. And then he just responds with, I can't do it as well as he does, but it makes me laugh every time.
Oh, I'm so glad we're done talking about this.
We need a palate cleanser after this. I mean, this was rough.
I'll admit, I read a book that is not based off of a movie immediately after finishing this. It's all about murder, and I felt so much better. I really did. But Christina, why don't you tell, because I do feel really, really bad for making people either watch this movie or read the book, or if you're as unfortunate as us, you did both. Christina, why don't you tell them what we're doing next?
Sure. So the next one I am excited about and very curious about. We are doing The Birds. So that is the book by, and I hope I say her name right, but it's Daphne du Maurier.
Yeah, close enough.
Of course,
you're no Liz Gilbert, but close enough. I have to stop.
And it's was obviously adapted into the Alfred Hitchcock movie of the same name. So I think we're on the same page where take a drink every time we say it. I've watched the movie, never read the book.
Same. I've seen the movie like 1,000 times, so I'm very excited to see how the story and the movie compare.
Yeah, me too. I don't know anything about the story, so it is a short story. I think it's like 60 pages or under. And I don't know anything about it. I don't know how close it is or not, so it'll be a nice little surprise.
It's going to be a nice palate cleanser because we owe one to everybody now that we got 2021 started off on the wrong foot.
Well, we're going from self-absorption to people's eyes getting, plucked out by birds, so I'm down with it.
Yeah, it sounds like a good transition. It's all part of that new year, new me, right? I'm doing the whole no eyes thing this year, you guys.
No eyes, exactly.
Yeah.
India, Italy, Indonesia, no eyes.
No eyes and definitely no D's, okay? No Davids, no depressions, no divorces. Ugh. Well, Christina, thank you so much for joining me on this spiritual journey about myself.
It's been interesting.
Yeah. Let's never do this one again. This one's going in the furnace. But
sounds good.
All right.
I was going to say, because she says, what is your word that defines you? And I think our word for Liz Gilbert is goodbye.
Yes. Girl, bye. Well, I want to say it's been a blast, but But thank you all for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll catch you next time.
Oh, and thank you to Jesse, our sound engineer. Thank you so much.
Big ups to Jess. All right, Christina. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.